and also necessitated bringing on an additional full-time and an additional part-time worker. This year, we would like to expand our production facility to include a micro-distillery. We project that offering spirits on-premise would result in another increase of about $40,000, moving our fledgling brewery safely into the black. And best of all, an investment in small breweries improves more than just our bottom line. Our reinvestment of these dollars into our business has a powerful multiplier effect, resulting in investments in the green economy, the environment, the provision of health insurance, manufacturing, the creation of local jobs, and the direct support of the industry. So your small investment would make a huge difference, and we truly appreciate your consideration. Thank you again for being part of the Small Brewers Caucus and for inviting us to speak to you today. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have, either now or later on this evening at the beer tasting.
Next, I'm just going to have Dan over from Betsy Markey's office going to speak real quick on a resolution that we're working on. Please.
Actually, this made it a lot easier to talk about the resolution because we've got a resolution coming up. We're going to introduce it tomorrow on American Craft Beer Week, which is a week sponsored by the Brewers Association. Everything that these two talked about how important brewers are, that's what we talk about in this resolution. Community recognition, international awards, jobs, economy, all that great stuff that comes from craft brewing. We want to celebrate that, and we've got a week. It's May 17th to 23rd. So resolution will be introduced tomorrow. You can contact me. I've got your colleagues up here at the front with my email address. Original co-sponsorships about the next day, but we'll be out there looking for co-sponsors after that. So thanks a lot.
Any quick questions about the tax? Anybody have any?
And we have informational packets up front, which we can hand out after the meeting as well on 4278.
Right.
Okay. I'm Charlie Papazian, president of the Brewers Association, and I'm here to talk about beer, which is something that I can talk hours about. After this session, you were all invited to come join us at the Capital City Brewing Company near Union Station for a back-of-the-house tour of the brewery, as well as a beer tasting that they're offering. And what I'd like to do today is just go through very, very briefly a little primer on some of the beer styles we're going to try this evening. And I want to start out with that, review the 4 essential ingredients in beer, which are water, malt, and you can see from these photographs that there are many different kinds of malt. They contribute color, they contribute flavor, they contribute aroma, and is an important aspect, agricultural aspect of beer. Next slide. Hops are the hop cone, and actually the cone that develops from the flower of the hop vine, and they are an element, an important ingredient in beer. They contribute hop bitterness, hop flavor, and hop aroma. Next slide. And a close-up look at the hop cone gives you a view of the essence of what's going on with hops. That yellow powder is not actually powder in the hop cone, but they're oil glands and resins, and that give hops the bitterness and the fruity, flowery flavors and aromas that you experience in many of today's craft beers. Yeast is a microorganism. If you look at a clear glass of beer, there can still be, if it's unfiltered, there can still be as many as 1 million yeast cells in 1 cubic centimeter, 1 milliliter of beer, even though it appears perfectly clear. That's how small they are. These are the microorganisms that ferment. They turn malt sugars into alcohol, the flavor of beer, and the carbon dioxide over a period of time ranging from about 1 week for certain styles of beers to many months for other styles of beers. This is the way I look at beer, isn't it? I look inside the glass, in depth, at what, the spirit, the essence, the ingredients, and the character of beer. A lot of beer drinkers in this country have just superficially drink beer without really thinking about it. I enjoy knowing about beer. I enjoy knowing about the brewers, personalities of small brewers across the country, and think about that when I enjoy beer. And I'm going to share with you some of the background of the styles that have developed over the years, particularly the last 30 years, at microbreweries and craft brewers around the country. Next. One of the beers that we're going to try today is a German style of beer called Kolsch. After the and it originated in the city of Cologne in Germany. It is actually not a lager beer, it's an ale. But unique to Germany, this is a light ale that is actually aged at cold temperatures for a brief period of time.
Could you enlighten us, or at least me, what's the difference specifically between a lager and an ale?
Yes, I can do that. Ales are traditionally made from a variety of yeast that ferment beer at warmer temperatures and give the character. And the difference in character is that when you ferment beer with ale yeast at warmer temperatures, 60 to 70 degrees, and sometimes higher for certain stuff, you get a lot of fruity esters, just like you get fruity esters in wine. You get grapefruit, strawberry, and many other types of esters that yeast will produce. And that results in a more complex overall character in the beer. Lagers are fermented at cooler temperatures. They start at 55 degrees, and the word lager means to store in German. And so they will start at fermentation at 55 degrees, and then they will crash the temperature down to a low, almost freezing temperature, and they will lager it or store the beer at those cold temperatures. And that kind of yeast tends to smooth out and mellow out the otherwise complex flavors you would get in a higher fermentation type beer. That's it in a nutshell.
How does that do?
Well, with this, it's an ale that's fermented at 60, 70 degrees, but then it's lagered at cold temperatures, which is a kind of a hybrid. And so you tend to get an ale that is a bit smoother than the typical American style ales that you have. And traditional German ales, German Kolsch in particular, tend not to be overly hoppy. They have a nice balanced bitterness, but they don't go overboard with some of the hop characters that American brewers love to exhibit. So that would be one beer style that we're going to try at the Cap City Club. Pale ales. You know, in the old days, craft brewing here in this country, pale ales, the inspiration was the British pub. So a lot of the original pale ales in this country were modeled after English style ales, which were 5 to 6% pale ales that were served in pubs throughout England with English hops. But a strange thing happened in this country in that American brewers wanted more character. They discovered hops for the first time, because at that time American lagers had less and less hop character. All of a sudden everybody was discovering the character of hops. They started adding more hops, and in particular they began using American grown hops. And American grown hops, as opposed to English grown hops or German grown hops, have unique characters which sometimes can be described as citrusy, grapefruity, lemony, and that is how the American style of pale ale has evolved over the years. Now, when you go to a brew pub or a microbrewery, you often see, you know, this is an American style pale ale. The difference is that they're using American products, American hops, and it's a very aromatic character, whereas British style pale ales are a little bit smoother, a little bit more caramel, and they don't have that citrusy character that defines American. Yes. Red ales, this is another style of beer which is kind of all over the place. It's a pale ale that has had a bit more of those darker colored malts that I showed on the first slide. Those malts that are popularly used in this are sometimes called crystal malt, or what essentially that is caramelized malt. The malt sugars in the grain are roasted while they're wet, they're roasted at a little bit higher temperature, and just like as if you were burning or cooking sugar over a stove, you caramelize the sugars, you turn the sugar an amber color, and the more you roast them, the darker they get. And you get the caramelized character, and that's what helps define red ales. Some red ales are very hoppy, bitter, floral, and some are smooth